Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast with just me this time. I've been talking about a TV series from 1988 called Dekalog. It was produced in Poland and created and written, co-written, and directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski, the filmmaker you may know from the Colors trilogy of films. Really brilliant filmmaker. Sadly, died young and left us with a fascinating body of work. One of which is the series Dekalog, which is a television series of 10 episodes, each hour-long episode, which is also considered in some reviews I've read, consider this series to be a single work, a single film, and Dekalog by Krzysztof Kieslowski is sometimes listed as a film in favorite films lists. People listing their favorite films will sometimes list this series as a 10-hour film. But I'm going to review each episode. I'm going to review it as a TV series. I'm going to talk this time about Dekalog Four, the fourth episode, each one named after a number. This one is a strange episode that kind of gives you uneasy feelings. It's a very morally ambiguous, ethically questionable oddity of story, and it takes place in the same housing project, the same structure, this brutalistic apartment complex in Soviet communist Poland, in Warsaw. And the story involves a father and a daughter who lived together, and the mother passed away when the daughter was very young. The father travels a lot, and the daughter is an aspiring actress. She's taking acting classes, but she finds in her father's things, she finds a letter that says, "To be opened upon my death." So of course that's a fascinating thing to find, but you don't want to just open it and read it because the person is still alive, and you don't want to wait for the person to die. You want to know what's in that letter. So it's a fascinating premise at that point. She thinks about it. She kind of she feels that the implication is that her father maybe wanted her to open it because she had noticed that he always takes it with him when he travels, but this one time he left it out for her, as though he left it out for her to find, or that's her justification. So she opens it with a pair of scissors, sort of irreparably damaging the envelope. I was kind of hoping she might steam it open so she could reseal it, but she cuts it open, and inside is another envelope. But this one is handwritten by her mother, who died when she was very little. She doesn't remember her mother. But the inside envelope is addressed to her, to my little daughter. So she looks at the writing, she digs through her mother's things, gets other examples of her mother's handwriting, and she forges a letter in her mother's handwriting. And then when her father gets back from his trip, she claims that she has opened the letter and read it, and that the letter says, and here's, spoiler alert, this is why you should watch the episode before you watch this. I'll give you time to go watch it. Okay, you're back. All right, so now that you've seen it, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to discuss what she did and why, and why it's sort of open to speculation as to why she did it. She forged this letter from her mother and told her father, and basically she's testing him a little bit, saying, "Did you ever open it and read it?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Well, it says that you are not my father," which is major revelation, right? But he doesn't seem... He's basically, the implication in the characterization and the reactions and all imply that it doesn't matter. Of course, it doesn't. If a person and if a child and a parental figure have that relationship, that transcends any kind of blood relationship, of course. But in this case, she is implying that she's always felt an attraction towards him, which she ascribes to the fact that they are not actually related. And there's an implication in there too where she says women know these things. It's an intuition, women's intuition. She implies that she's always known that they were not related, and therefore she was attracted to him. And she tells him that she felt like, anytime she had a boyfriend, she was thinking of him. I won't go into too much detail, but there's some very uneasy stuff in this episode with that, and the father is very uneasy about it. And the episode ends interestingly. She basically is seducing him, and you don't know what he's going to do, and then he comes up to her and he puts a sweater around her, basically like, no, that's not going to happen, and I am your father. And she is conflicted. She's very emotional, and some of her reactions are hard to interpret in the story. And so there's a lot of questions in my mind about what she was feeling and why she did what she did, and what he was feeling and whether he was being truthful or what. But anyway, at the very end, they decide to burn the real letter for some reason. That's another thing that I don't completely understand the motivation for that. But they decide to burn the letter from the deceased mother, and they burn it, almost like they're trying to just, like, no matter what it says, it's not going to be as shocking as what you forged, I guess. But anyway, they burn it, and there's still a little piece of it that didn't get burned, and so she pulls the letter out. And the very last thing we see is her reading it, and it's like shockingly almost exactly like what she had written. But it says, my dearest daughter, Michael, I think his name is Michael, is not your, and that's where it's burned. So you don't get the final, is not, that's the end. And the episode at that point cuts to black. So you're left with what was it? What was she going to say? Was she going to say he's not your father? Or is she going to say, he's not someone to be ignored. You must always do what he said. You don't know, because it's burned, and you can't go back and retrace the email path or whatever. It is gone forever, and mom is no longer. So she will never know what her mother intended for her to know, which is a strange ending. I would actually hate that feeling of having a note from someone in your family who's passed away, and just purposefully making it so that you can never read it. You can never know what they wanted to communicate to you. It's almost it's a disrespect. From the way I looked at it, I felt like it was a disrespectful thing for them to do. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of allegorical. I don't know. But anyway, this episode was kind of troubling for me, partly because of the sort of incestuous current going through it. The cast is incredible. The acting is amazing. The way it's shot is beautiful. The cinematography is incredible. The locations, again, the same. Housing complex. At one point, you see another character from one of the other episodes going around his daily route, and you realize there's an interaction. There's also another aspect of the show I don't think I've mentioned yet, but there is a character who appears allegedly in every episode except for 2 episodes. And he seems to be this sort of observer. He is definitely aware of the characters in the story, but he doesn't interact with them. He doesn't say anything. He's always just sort of walking through and seems to be like really specifically looking at them. And it tends to happen during moments when choices are about to be made. It's almost like he's the Jiminy Cricket, the kind of almost like a Christ-like character who shows up and and a lot of times wearing bright like white colors. And but he shows up and um, observes the characters almost like he's trying to communicate something to them with his eyes, and the characters often notice him in a way that's like, what's he looking at? And so there, that character is a character in these 10 stories, a presence, maybe a conscience, or maybe the spirit of faith or something. There's a moment there when a person has to make a choice based on their instinct or their faith or their science or whatever they make their choices based on, and he seems to be that catalyst somehow that's imparting some kind of, or trying to impart some sort of knowledge upon them or something. It's hard for me to interpret at this point, but anyway, that is Dekalog 4. And thanks for listening. If you have other interpretations of this series, these episodes, let me know in the comments, because I am very likely wrong with my assessment of these things, because I'm interpreting it from my perspective, and you never know. I think maybe that's the point of the filmmakers and the writer, that to let us make let us form opinions and meaning, and pull meaning from these things, because what we're seeing is just a snip of life, a daily chunk of drama in a life or two, and how that makes us feel, how it makes us think. Do we judge? Are these people morally, ethically sound? Do we approve of them? Do we disapprove of them? Do we judge their actions? Anyway, that's what's interesting about this show to me. It's that, again, the window. We're looking in a window at these events in someone's life, and we're exercising our ability to judge characters in a film, and it's very interesting. Very, very beautifully made, beautifully shot, acting, casting, everything very nice in this series. But anyway, that's Dekalog 4. Thanks for joining me. I will talk to you again real soon.